I have my paint booth installed for my Jeep project. It's an SBS open face paint booth. It's about 8 feet wide by 8 feet deep. There's a few of these for sale on the local Craigslist, and I found this one locally. It was owned by a cabinet maker who used it for painting kitchen cabinets. It comes apart with quarter 20 bolts, probably around 100 bolts or so, maybe more. So each panel comes apart at all the seams. Same with the back, it all comes apart just with 1/4 inch bolts. So taking it apart and building it was pretty easy. The most difficult part was mounting the tube axial fan on the top and the 24-inch ductwork out the back of the barn. Here you can see how it's built. It's just a bunch of 1/4 inch bolts that hold each panel together. Same with the top. And then the tube fan sits on the very top of the booth, and the 24-inch ductwork goes out the back. I've always wanted a paint booth, and I don't really have the space for a large one. What's really nice about this style is you only lose a 2 foot wide by 8 foot section of your garage floor. And that's this last section here, where the tube fan sits on top and the furnace filters or the paint filters sit right here. So you lose this much floor space, about 2 feet by 8 feet wide. And then there's a wall here and a wall here, but you still have this space inside to park things if you need to. So for my application, it's a good option. It's very affordable. And for the Jeep project, just with some 2x4s and plastic, I made the booth quite a bit bigger, 14 feet by 12 feet. So I could do everything I need to do for this project. And then I'll use the wood for something else or stack it so I could always make this over again if I have another project. The one drawback to this style of a booth is there is no filter for the incoming air. So if your shop is relatively dirty, probably not a great idea. But my shop's relatively clean. And if I do have any issues with dust in the paint, I can just wet sand and polish out. And then the lights in the top are just Harbor Freight LED strip lights. And the explosion-proof fixture that came with the booth, I reused the fixture, and that's actually tempered glass right here to keep any fumes from getting inside the fixture. Those are LED tubes. So I got rid of the ballasts. And those are 4. And then the LEDs from Harbor Freight. The 2x4 across right here is for hanging things. So just some copper wire over this. I can hang stuff and paint it. And then the easels for painting doors and hoods and fenders and that. The filters are held in there with grids, and they just pop in with these studs that stick out. You just push the furnace, I keep calling these furnace filters, these paint arresters, paint filters. You push them onto those studs and they hold in place. And those can be found on eBay really cheap. I bought, I think 100 of those filters for like 40 bucks or so. So if it holds 16 at a time, I've got enough for about 5 changes. Okay, I'm gonna paint some parts. I'll shoot a video of that and see how well the vacuum for the paint aerosols works. October 27th, and I'm getting ready to paint the Jeep tub. Everything has been masked off. and I wiped it down one time with solvent. I'm going to do that 2 more times and then begin painting. Yesterday I finished the front fenders, the rear tailgate, and the grille. The day before that I did the doors, but I need to redo the doors because I had a couple runs. So I'm hoping, with the experience I've had painting the fenders and grille and tailgate without any runs, I hope I have good luck. Fast forward a couple weeks, and I have the tub completed, as well as the grille, windshield frame, tailgate, doors, fenders, and I'm happy with how it came out. This is the Raptor liner color. It's like a grayish version of the actual paint color, and I think it's a nice contrast under the hood and against the firewall, instead of having everything the same color beige, which is called 3A. It was a factory color on the 1978 CJ7, which is what I'm modeling this after now. And what I like about this beige color is with the red, orange, and like a terracotta color stripe, I think it looks really sharp. I'll have the spice tan interior. I'm not sure about carpet yet. And then the stripe down the side, up the fender, and on the hood. The booth worked really well. I didn't get any overspray in the garage. And I had really minimal dust in the paint job. I haven't sanded this yet or buffed it. And you can see there's no dust in it that's any worse than the orange peel. I have quite a bit of sanding and finishing to do. It's tough to make out with this color, but you can kind of see how the sheen on the outside is kind of dull when you look at it up close. I had to be real careful about painting the flats, the vertical pieces, because this is a single stage paint, and I noticed that it likes to run similar to like a clear coat, so I couldn't go too thick in one pass. In fact, here's a couple runs I'll have to take care of with either a wet sand or maybe a nib file. I'm not sure yet, but it ran down the door jamb and then a couple drips. I think with wet sand, maybe on a hard block, I'll be able to get rid of those if I don't hit them with a nib file first. But that's the worst of the imperfections in the paint job. Everything else is just gonna get a sanding by hand with 1200 grit wet, and then a polish. It is a single stage, and I've had really good luck polishing this to a really nice uniform finish. I don't want really ultra high gloss with this color because this is more of a dull, less vibrant color, especially with the stripes that I'm planning. So what I'm looking for is just a nice even finish across the whole Jeep. Also, the color does a really good job of hiding imperfections. This tub is pretty straight, but there is some There are some spots where there's some waves down the length of the tub, but once I sand and polish, I think most of it will blend together. Not to mention I'll have a stripe that comes down through here and goes down. This is the worst of the two sides where this embossed Jeep emblem is. I tried really hard to keep this repair panel flush with the outside of the existing tub, but the way this was stamped, the area around the letters was in compared to the rest of the metal. So at certain angles you can see, there we go, it's pretty exaggerated in this part of the video, but right here, this is much lower than right here. And I think it's the nature of the stamping. It's unfortunate because this is really straight across and the repair came out really well. But the actual stamping itself could have been done a little bit better, maybe to avoid this. Again, once the letters are painted and there's a stripe here, I think it'll take eyes away from this. I hope, at least that's what I'm counting on. Plus, when it gets sanded and polished together, you could see like up here how the finish is more rough, like I had a dry spot. Whereas down here, it's much glossier. So as this gets wet sanded and polished, I think that'll clear out. That's the worst part right there on the tub. So I'm not trying to hide anything. That just is what it is. All right. And then real quick, here's how the fenders came out. These came out much better because they were laying flat, so I could put a lot more material on them. But I like the contrast between the grayish hue of this color next to the tan. I think it's going to break up underneath the hood really well, instead of just using black. And then there's the grille with the relief I made to fit between the YJ frame. I filled in this spot here, and then that's the clearance I made for the power steering pump. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know, and thanks for watching.